Have you ever noticed how Amul is one brand that's become so ingrained into our lives iconically? It's there in our homes, on our televisions, in our newspapers, and even in our daily conversations. Amul branding is so familiar to all of us that we don't even ask for butter at the Kirana store anymore. We naturally ask for Amul butter. This brand has gradually become a default in our lives. But behind its ubiquity hides something far more deep and complex. After decades of existence, Amul is part of a cooperative system that generates over 1 trillion rupees in annual turnover today. And hear me out, the interesting part is not the number itself. It is that nothing about the brand needed to significantly change for it to happen. And that leads us to a simple question. How does something so invisible at the surface operate at this scale without ever behaving like a typical large corporation? Amul is not a single company in the traditional FMCG sense. It is a consumer-facing identity of a larger cooperative system built around India's dairy economy. At its center is the GCMMF, the Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation. It's not merely a marketing body. In financial year 2026, GCMMF itself recorded approximately 73,450 crore in turnover, reflecting steady double-digit growth. The broader 1 trillion figure comes from the combined output of the cooperative network feeding into the system. So the scale does not come from consolidation. It comes from coordination across a distributed production base, which makes it structurally different from most FMCG organizations in India or globally. To understand this system, you have to go back to its design origin. Post-independence India's dairy sector was fragmented, localized, and intermediated. Farmers had limited purchasing power and supply chains were insufficient and volatile. The White Revolution, led by Verghese Kurian, did not try to build a dairy company. It redesigned the system. The idea was simple. Milk producers had to become stakeholders in the value chain, not just suppliers at its lowest margin point. This created a three-layer structure. Milk collection at the village level, processing through district unions, coordination and marketing through a federation. The federation became GCMMF, and the consumer-facing identity of the system became Amul. What emerged was not just a company scaling operations, but a network production system aligned through a single market interface. In a conventional FMCG company, value creation is centralized and distributed outward through supply chains. In the Amul system, value creation is distributed, while coordination is centralized only at the aggregation and market interface layer. This creates a structurally different outcome. Pricing stability and income distribution sit closer to the producer network, while brand and market coordination sit at the federation level. The result is a system that is less dependent on aggressive efficiency optimization and more dependent on network stability across millions of producers. And because the product is already trusted, it doesn't rely on fancy marketing to convince, just subtle reminders from time to time. The structural outcome is cost discipline embedded at the source of production rather than imposed at the point of sale. That is what makes the system resilient across commodity cycles. Once this structure exists, growth does not behave like conventional FMCG expansion. Amul does not expand category by category in the typical sense of building new supply chains for each product line. The supply chain already exists. Milk procurement networks span millions of producers. Processing infrastructure is distributed across regional unions. And GCMMF provides national coordination. Growth, therefore, comes from layering products onto an existing system. Butter, cheese, ice cream, yogurt, and processed dairy products are not separate structural expansions. They are extensions of utilization across an already functioning network. This is why Amul's growth appears gradual, but compounds over time into system scale output. GCMMF is often misunderstood as a marketing body. In practice, it functions as a coordination across three roles: aggregating supply across cooperatives, maintaining pricing and procurement alignment, and ensuring brand consistency across geographies. This structure also stabilizes cash flows across a highly distributed producer base, reducing volatility at the system level. This is not marketing in the conventional sense. It is system-level coordination of a distributed production economy into a single consumer identity. That is why Amul maintains unusually consistent branding behavior despite operating through highly fragmented regional structures. The coherence is structural. not accidental. The most visible output of the system is the Amul advertising presence, particularly the Amul Girl hoardings. But this is not a traditional campaign system. Instead of periodic brand bursts, Amul maintains a constant presence in public discourse by reacting to cultural and political events in near real time. The function of this system is not persuasion, it is continuity of attention. Because Amul has its iconic imagery, like that of the iconic girl in the polka dot frock, heritage-based jingles in their ads,
utterly delicious, Amul!
And even topicals in newspapers taking humorous jabs at the latest happenings. Marketing avenues that don't even try to be disruptive or attention-grabbing. They just naturally render memorable in our lives. In short, the brand remains continuously present in public cognition through low-cost, high-frequency cultural alignment. Over time, this creates one of the highest recall efficiencies in Indian FMCG without relying on proportional media spending. Viewed together, production, coordination, and branding form a single structure, a distributed rural production network, a centralized coordination and marketing federation, and a continuously present consumer identity layer. Individually, none of these elements are unusual, but when they are at scale, they collectively create a structure where production, ownership, and identity move in alignment rather than separation. This is why Amul does not behave like a typical FMCG competitor. It does not need aggressive reinvention cycles. Its continuity is embedded in its structure. In most FMCG companies, expansion is category-driven. New demand is identified, new products are developed, and new supply chains are built to support them. In Amul's case, the supply chain already exists. So expansion is not structural. It is incremental utilization of capacity. This makes growth appear steady rather than disruptive. But at scale, steady utilization becomes compounding output. The 1 trillion rupee figure is not a performance spike. It is the cumulative output of a system that compounds through integration, portfolio expansion, and distribution continuity. None of these forces is episodic. They operate continuously over time, which is why the number is better understood as a system output rather than a performance spike. Amul's international expansion into markets like the United States and parts of Europe is still early and selective. But global scaling introduces a different set of constraints, which aren't really pertaining to demand. They are more about structural compatibility across dairy ecosystems. Unlike India's integrated cooperative system, global dairy markets are fragmented, heavily regulated, and structurally disjointed. Cold chain infrastructure, pricing systems, and consumer trust vary significantly across regions. This makes replication of the domestic model difficult. As a result, international expansion is not just a distribution challenge. It's a structural translation problem. The same structure that enables stability also introduces constraints. Decision-making is distributed across cooperative governance, which limits speed. The brand, despite its breadth, is still primarily perceived as dairy-centric rather than diversified FMCG, and global penetration remains limited compared to multinational FMCG firms. Additionally, dependence on perishable supply chains introduces operational sensitivity to climate, logistics, and seasonal variability. These constraints are not inefficiencies. They are design trade-offs of a federated governance system. Amul is often described merely as a dairy brand, but that framing misses the structure entirely. The system works because alignment is engineered across production, coordination, and identity without requiring centralized ownership. This creates a model where production, ownership, and branding are aligned rather than separated across corporate hierarchies. Most FMCG companies scale through control. Amul scales through alignment of its federated ecosystem with its effortless, natural, and almost invisible branding. The White Revolution was not just an agricultural reform. It was a structural redesign of how rural production connects to urban consumption. And Amul is the long-term outcome of that very design. A system that did not grow through disruption or reinvention, but through consistency across millions of small, coordinated actions over decades. Which is why the 1 trillion rupees figure is not the story. It's just the output. The real story is much simpler. If you like this video and learned something from it, consider leaving a like, dropping a comment below, and subscribing to the Fundwise YouTube channel for more such content.